Here, and we're off and running. Okay. Today we are covering delivery problems. So we're about halfway through the transportation module. And now we're going to look at what happens when stuff gets busted. Manage the resolution of delivery receiving problems. So freight terms, domestic and international. We've covered this before. Freight managers should be using Incoterms. The UCC terms, which are the whole FOB, destination, all that mess. If you go back into F1, I think there's a paper on them, but they're obsolete. They haven't been updating them since 2002. And if you're in an international firm like we are, just use the Incoterms. Delivery tracking systems, technology has improved how freight is tracked. So we can now determine where a shipment is at any given point and when delivery has taken place. The use of the RFID systems is a trend of the future because right now it's pretty spendy. But yeah, our new SAP system, our transportation management system downstairs on floor 2 will track a lot of this stuff for us. Delivery performance measurements. The primary objective is to deliver the required material on time. So some measures that are frequently used, there's first 4 are all on damages, amount per trailer load or vehicle, amount to goods while in transit, amount to good just during loading, and amount to goods while unloading. I'm not sure which ones of these. A lot of times it's hard to track whether during loading or unloading. All you know is it showed up busted on the dock. Late deliveries is a percent of all deliveries, percent of orders delivered on time, which is the flip side, percent of deliveries outside preset delivery window. So we use this at our plants. You got to get your truck in there. We'll give you a window of like 11 to 1. Be there. And then cost of the damage claims. Visible versus concealed damage. So there's 2 types. The visible damage, sometimes called unconcealed loss or damage, and concealed, also called latent damage, also called concealed loss or damage. A lot of people will use the term latent. The buyer of the goods has protection in both cases, both types of damage. So goods with visible damage should be noted, should be refused or labeled as NCP, non-conforming product. The damage should be noted on the carrier's delivery receipt. You got to take pictures and send it back to the carrier and file a damage claim. Latent damage, on the other hand, is concealed. You won't see it when it's on the dock, but 6 months later, your circuit board fails because they didn't use the right procedures and ground themselves when they were handling it when they produced the thing and fried half of the chips on there. That's latent damage, and that is usually covered under the warranty section. So rules for freight claims. The basis for filing a freight claim is a breach of contract, which, it's a minor breach, but it's still a breach. And the claimant must initially prove its claim. The burden of proof then shifts to the carrier. So it's a breach of contract because you're not sending a part that they can use. Anytime you do that, the contract calls for good parts that meet a certain spec. And then you've got to prove that there's damage that happened in transit. And once you do that, the carrier has to prove that it wasn't them. Organizations should keep records to ID trends in loss and damage. Certain firms do better at this than others as far as shipping and busting stuff, along with response times for claim payments. So another thing called consequential damages, and you'll see this in our LTAs, otherwise known as special damages. So consequential damages, special damages, it's all the same thing. So damage you can prove occurred because of the failure of one party to meet a contractual obligation. goes beyond the contract itself and into actions garnished from the failure to fulfill. So special or consequential damages are things like lost sales, production downtime, construction delays. And we do go after suppliers for this stuff if it really hammers us. We have to shut down plants or whatever because some supplier's late. We can go after them for consequential damages, and can't really go after them for lost sales. That's a little weird, but you go after them for lost profits. Material ownership. Only the owner of the goods can file a damage or loss claim because the owner is the one that's accountable for the goods and has the liability for them. And only the owner has the legal right to dispose of the goods. So this transfer of title, where that takes place, is important because it's only the owner that can file the shipment. So when we pick up from our suppliers, like we usually do, title will transfer when we put it on our truck. If the supplier is delivering to us, which happens in rare occasions, then title transfers on our dock. So on most of the freight damage, we're the ones that have to file the claims. Bill of lading, a document generated by a shipping line or its agent, giving details of the shipment of goods. Alongside its principal purpose, the bill of lading also certifies that goods have been shipped, not just aboard a vessel, but trucks will also use a bill of lading. In some cases, certifies the condition of the goods, the point of loading, signs title, and requires the carrier to release the merchandise to the holder of the title or name party at the destination port. So they really use a lot of bill of ladings on ships. Manufactured cost of making the part. So the freight carriers don't use that. What they want to know is the declared value, and GATT outlines the requirements for that. World Trade Organization is the successor to GATT. So the declared value, the primary basis for customs valuation under the agreement, is defined in Article 1. So Article 1 defines transaction value as the price actually paid or payable for the goods when sold for export. So transaction value measured by an invoice for the goods. This is why they always are asking for invoices when you're going through customs. Customs documentation needs an invoice so they know what the tax is and where it came from. The invoice value is also used to compute a tax that the broker usually pays on our behalf. And the methods of customs valuation in descending order are transaction value of the merchandise, so price actually paid, transaction value of identical merchandise or similar merchandise, so it's not quite the same, but close. And there's something called deductive value and computed value and derivative method, which are all kind of weird, but they're spelled out in the WTO regs. And the hierarchy is codified in domestic legislation. I don't know what we use on US customs, but we certainly use the first few. Resolution process consists of two key components: escalation. If the carrier fails to rectify the situation, the next step is to file a claim. And then negotiation may be required to resolve the claim. Usually that's how it's resolved. And litigation is the final escalation step where you go to court. Corrective action, the carrier has the option to take corrective action before the claim is filed. This is a little bit different from the 8D. The responsible parties have the option of replacing or repairing the item. So the carrier may choose to replace or repair the item. And the buying organization can also repair the items and bill the carrier, which usually is what happens. Now, maritime law is a special resolution process. It's also called the general average. It's a maritime rule for board ships. It says any cargo lost at sea due to a shipboard emergency, then all parties with a financial interest in the freight must proportionally share any losses. So the York Antwerp rules date back to 1890 and provide details for applying the general average. So if there's an insurance company, there's a supplier and a customer, and the stuff gets washed overboard in a big storm, all three of those guys will split the cost evenly, even though it's insured, because of this York Antwerp rules dating back to 1890. It's just how they do it on the ocean. Reverse logistics. So we use this to deal with our returnable pallets and racks, along with environmentally friendly packaging. Maps out the return path for the racks. General objectives are cost reduction, and also it's a damage benefit because stuff in racks usually doesn't get messed up as badly. Warehouses and national freight carriers or 4PLs can also be set up to handle large volumes of return product for warranty issues. So if you got a lot of warranty issues, you might want to set up something through a 4PL. Accuracy of documentation provides a record of historical events. Accurate documentation will help prevent shipping delays. This is usually where stuff gets delayed at customs because paperwork's not filled out right. Carefully check bills of lading and contract terms and conditions. All right. The most typical freight resolution process used when there is a problem with a freight shipment or claim include what? Okay, so they're asking you processes. All right.
Would that be de-escalation and corrective action?
Yeah, I would go with that. I'm thinking litigation and corrective action, but the most typical would probably be D. Let's see what these guys say. Yeah, D it is. Yeah, litigation is only used as a last resort. All right, your lamp manufacturing firm has been facing increased damages to the component it receives from a specific domestic supplier. While you have been in frequent contact with the component supplier, you have not been satisfied with the response, as the supplier is adamantly maintaining that the carrier is to blame, and this is very common. You are not certain the carrier is causing the damage, but you are also not certain that the carrier isn't at fault, also very common. At this point, you realize that if you don't do something soon, you will not be able to collect any damages from anyone, because usually there's like a 90-day limit on it for filing a claim. So, or maybe it's not 90 days, maybe it's 9 months. Yeah, so this one, anybody want to guess? It's got to be the A on the 9-month answer. A it is. For domestic U.S. shipments, claimants have 9 months from the date of delivery to file a claim with the carrier. Code of Federal, I don't know what, this is some trucking regulation, I think. All right, so we've got 8 questions out on the chat. So why don't you guys go get on them and just raise your hand when you get done. Otherwise, we'll go at like 3:52. Oh, that's E. Jesus. Hopefully that's what I put out there. you guys are getting quick. Okay. Answers. Number 1 is Charlie. Freight charges may be paid by either the buyer or the seller as negotiated by the contract. 2 is also Charlie. Nonconformance to specifications is not a consequence of late delivery or the NCP. 3 is also Charlie because non-conforming product tags would not be issued until the material had been received in the plant. Question stem was asking for metrics on delivery performance. And 4, Bravo, because a warranty usually covers workmanship and materials for the part. BCB is no longer functioning correctly. It should be covered on the warranty. Most warranties are valid for at least a year. 5 is Bravo, also. Correct, because both insurance companies and customs agencies use the invoice to determine how much the goods are worth when they are imported or exported. And 6 is Delta. Before and after pictures implicate the freight carrier, but the carrier has the right to take corrective action, which is to replace or repair the item. 7 is Charlie. Because the 3 principles of the York-Antwerp or the general average rules were met, so the shipping company, the insurer, and Acme must share proportionally in the final financial losses, even though the cargo was insured against loss. It's just the way the York-Antwerp rules work. And 8 is Alpha, because this will cut down the use of wooden pallets and can also reduce the use of other packaging materials used to separate the parts from one another. All right, that's what I got for you guys today.
Thanks, Rick.
Yeah, talk to you tomorrow.
Thank you, Rick.